Remember, we moved this,
Thanks, Greg.
part this, put this right over here so that when you're looking at the screen, you're also looking at sort of in the general direction, in the direction of the owl. And then it actually looks like you're talking to people
Okay, good.
on the,
Yeah,
who are
great. Thank you.
traveling virtually here.
Got it. All right, thank
And
you.
then it will pick up and we get the get this out of the way. Then our newest member will not be obstructed here.
They're on, I'm just pulling up the documents. We're recording.
Okay, good evening. I'm Peter Pingator. This is our regularly scheduled meeting for the Community Preservation Committee. Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. I am chair of the committee. This meeting is being held in a hybrid format as detailed in the notice that we have posted with the town clerk's office pursuant to the applicable law. We've notified the public that they can attend. Members of the public can attend by being in person here at what is known as the PSAB building, 500 Dedham Ave, or you may attend virtually. The address of that can be found at the posted notice and agenda of our meeting. The meeting is hybrid pursuant to Governor Baker's original emergency order of March 12th, 2020, as continued and amended over the ensuing years during the period of the pandemic. And this meeting complies with our requirements under the open meeting law. So first, you should have your meeting agenda in front of you. As we've done in the past, we'll have a roll call vote, and I'll test what our technology to ensure that each of you can hear me and I can hear you, and by taking attendance. So let's start with those who are present here. And what I'd like to do is, we have a new member here tonight. And I think when I call your name, just announce your name. And if you would please kindly inform the committee what committee or what committee or appointing authority you're here pursuant to. Okay. So I'll start with Reg Foster.
Hi, I'm Reg Foster. I'm the chair of the Needham Housing Authority, and I have been the designated appointee to CPC.
And our newest member.
Hi, I'm Dave Harrer. I've been appointed by the Conservation Commission.
And remote, it appears that I see that there's Laura Dorfman.
Hi, I was appointed by the Historical Commission.
Okay, that's Laura Dorfman. And Rick Zimbo.
I'm present, and I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe I was appointed by the moderator. I'm not positive on that.
I feel pretty confident that you were appointed by the moderator. And I am Peter Pingator. I'm the chair, and I was appointed by the moderator as well. So we'll go through the roll call so that we know this. Dina Hannigan is not present, correct? Jean McKnight is not here yet, but may be here soon. Okay, and we'll just, when she appears, let's just note that for the record. Robert Dermody, who's not here presently, but may be here later on. And the same applies with respect to Joe Barnes.
I will
correct?
say Joe, Bob, and Jean are all trying to get in.
Okay,
And I'm resending them the link because something is not
Just
working,
happened.
but the public is in, so I'm not sure.
if
we'll
they come
see.
in as public members, can we then elevate them
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
committee? We can, if they're
Sometimes
hearing,
that's a good workaround.
if they're hearing us out there in the ethernet, if you're hearing us,
I don't know who Mar is, but usually I see Bob, Joe, and Jean as their names and I promote them. Yeah.
okay, good. Well, let's start with our chairman's updates. The only update I have right now is that Dave Harrer is now here from the Conservation Commission. One thing that I'll immediately put on your plate is that we are going through this process of amending the community preservation plan. We've been working through it, and there are certain parts of the plan that are focused on particular stakeholders. So there's a provision in the plan that deals with open space, which would be kind of the purview of Conservation Commission. And we are seeking the input of the committees that are stakeholders in those particular areas. So what I'll do now that we have a member from the Conservation Commission is what I'll ask our staff to arrange for me to come and make a short presentation before the Conservation Commission. You and I, Dave, talk offline about, what will bring you up to speed on what we're doing with the plan. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's start with, I think, why don't we start with where we left off rather than kind of replow the plan again. We can get to that next after this. But what I think, in fairness to the process, we should go through the 4 groups of questions that this working group of Laura, Joe Barnes, and Reg Foster put together. That's going to be issued at the point in time when we make a determination about eligibility. Okay, so want to do that? Okay, good. And so, so I'm going to leave it to this working group to maybe what we can do, Kristen, is put up, there we have 4 groups of sets of questions, due diligence questions, and we could just put them up there. I don't think I was not imagining that we would wordsmith the questions. We've gone through those before in the past, but it might be good for you to kind of have those up there and you can bring us up to speed. I would say the goal would be to try to finalize this now or the next meeting. And so that we all feel comfortable with it, with a set of working documents, due diligence questions that we'll be giving to the project applicants at the point in time when we determine that they're eligible for funding, which would be after January 1 or at or about January 1, 2023. Okay. So we'll turn it over to either Laura, Joe, if he's here, or Reg.
Laura, you want to take it?
Why don't you start with it, Laura?
Okay, sure. So the first one, I mean, they're going to be really similar in a lot of ways. The majority of the documents are the same. There's just specific questions related to the category of requests. So the first one, I don't know, Cecilia, if you can pull up the community, I believe that's community housing, that document.
I'm just gonna share the screen. You said community housing.
Yes,
Can you see that?
yes. And so, again, much of the detail in these are similar. Where we get to some of the specifics, and Reg or Joe jump in whenever, so here we are on page 3. I'm looking at my document, but on page 3, we asked a specific question about how the project addresses or supports the community housing goals in the CPA plan. And I guess we'll have to update the date because right now that's still dated 2014. Peter, so I'm guessing with all these changes, we can change the date of the application to 2022.
Well, we're not going to wait until we get our plan approved. So we'll approve the plan. Our goal is to approve the plan by February of 2023. But what we want to
Okay.
get this funding cycle is the amendments to the application process and the amendments to the due diligence questions. Okay. So we'll
Okay.
keep it a long way of saying 2014 stays in place for now.
Okay. And then on page 4, again, we just again modify the question, explain how this addresses factors for consideration for this topic. Really, honestly, those are the only changes. The template, which we've talked about and which we've crafted from other towns, I think specifically Lexington, is very similar, except for the changes where we literally adjust it for each bucket. And this, the goal behind this is, instead of on the original application where it just says explain in less than 100 words, I can't remember the exact wording, why this project is relevant and should be supported. This gives pointed questions to the proponent. And you know, the fact that it's not open-ended, I think makes it easier for the applicant and easier for the liaison. But also, I think we discussed that if we feel that this is a template, right? And so if the liaison, after having a conversation with the applicant, decides that some of these questions aren't appropriate, then they can modify as such. For example, an application for the Needham Community Farm is going to have a lot less detail than an application by the Housing Authority to develop, 900 new units, right? So we wanted to leave the discretion in terms of detail up to the CPC liaison working with the proponent. I'm not sure, Joe or Reg, if there's anything else. I mean, we can look at all of them, but I don't think there's going to be a ton of differences among them unless I've forgotten something, which is possible because it's been a few weeks.
No, I think you captured that pretty well, Laura. I think we wanted to fine tune and just change some of the wording as it applies to a particular application. But I think generally it's the same information we want to get from all applicants. It just depends on what category they're coming to us from. So I think you covered it all.
All right, and now let's hear from who's on the working group too. Reg, do you have anything to add?
Yes, two things. One is if you keep scrolling down, Cecilia, one other thing is you see that section 4 project specific section questions. We left room there for the questions that are generated usually in December-ish for each individual project that you couldn't really address from a general format or template point of view. And so the concept is, and we sort of did this last year, that either Cecilia or Kristen would, drop ship those questions into that last section. And then each proponent, each applicant would have a complete and structured set of questions and answer them in the same way, in the same format. So it would make it very easy for us to review those answers in January and February.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And I would also add one other thing to Laura's comment here about the 2014 plan reference. So to think that all those questions are on the earlier section that we just looked at come right out of the 2014 plan for the criteria and considerations that we think about, which reflect what we were thinking about in 2014, 8 years ago. And the thinking is we kind of need to do it that way because we don't have the 2023 plan, but we'll have one more task with the applications after the 2023 plan is published in February, which is to go back into those sections and adapt them to whatever it is that we decide are the new refined criteria that are in the 2023 plan.
Okay, I just want to add one other thing, which is that this doesn't preclude any member from submitting written questions at any point during the due diligence process. I know one member likes to ask questions after the presentation. So we'll put those in writing and those can supplement it, but I think it's a nice way of putting together a due diligence book. All right. Any other comments by the committee? I just want to note, by the way, so Joe Barnes is present and so is Robert Dermody.
There is a question from the audience
And now Jean McKnight is on. Okay.
as well.
Okay. This is not, we don't have, well, this is, we generally don't take questions from the public. This isn't a public hearing, but I guess I could, let's deal with the committee first. And then okay. All right, any other questions by the committee?
Yes, Peter. I have just a comment on all of the follow-up question documents. There's a typo in every one of them. It's really pretty minor, but I just thought this is the time to mention it because this is our final approval of these documents, right?
We hope
Yeah,
so.
they're organic, it's an organic process, but that's great that you caught.
Yeah, at the bottom, in the paragraph 2B, the word should be an assist. Does this project assist in planning and development activities? It says now, does this project assists?
Ah, okay.
It's an S that needs to be removed. And then on 1C, the word flood is misspelled as
Floor. Yeah,
flora. Yeah, okay. So just thought I'd mention those.
great. Thank you.
That's really helpful. And if there's anything else, Pat, will you, if you pick up on any other nits or nats, just forward those to.
Well,
Okay.
all of the goals, are repeats of the prior plan, of what was in the plan, the 2014 plan. So even though we're working on a new plan where we might revise those goals, we're working with the old goals now, I understand. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other comments or questions from the?
Peter?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Rick. Are we looking to, for a motion to approve these tonight?
Yeah, I think that we are. I don't know that we actually need to approve them, but these are due diligence questions, part of our working set of documents. But why do you ask?
Just to authorize staff to put it in the, on the website.
Okay, good. So I think that we might as well have, sure, we can motion to approve the master set of due diligence questions.
So you
And-
want to wait until we're through then? And do them all at once?
Sorry, Rick, I didn't hear that.
So you want to wait until we go through all of these and then have a motion for all of them to go forward?
I don't know that we need to review each one. We're not,
Okay.
I think that we use that as kind of a model template. Jean, did you pick up on any, do you have any, the misspellings that you picked up on in the nits and nats, those were directed to all four.
All four
sets.
had the exact same typo, yeah.
Okay, so then why don't I do this? Before we vote, why don't we, well, I'll make the motion and have a discussion. And if someone has any comments or questions that we didn't surface as a result of looking at one template, we can address it at that time. So I'll make the motion to approve and direct staff to post or make available. I
Yeah,
think it's just
and we
approve, right?
can go through and make any minor
Minor
edits,
changes,
like grammar
okay.
and stuff.
All right, can I have a second? All right, Dave Harrer makes a second. And now discussion. Okay, Laura Dorfman, hand is up.
Just a question on the application itself. That is not changing, correct?
No, we approved the application on our last meeting, my recollection.
Okay. So if we approve all these templates, then everything that someone needs to apply would be there for them. Or are we not going to post the follow-up questions right away?
I don't see why they shouldn't be made available. We're gonna put, you'll see, there's gonna be a little bit of a, well, you saw it in your meeting package. You should have gotten.
Right.
Calendar and a working, a planning or a planning group, planning document, excuse me. So you can see when we're gonna have people to respond to due diligence questions.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. But any
So
other,
Peter, I'll second your motion if it wasn't out already.
Dave's already seconded the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, further discussion. Hearing none, let's have a vote. We do this by roll call vote. Not in alphabetical order tonight, unfortunately. Dave Harrer. Rick Zimbo.
Aye.
Reg Foster. Laura Dorf.
Aye.
Jean McKnight.
Aye.
Robert Dermody.
Approve.
Joe Barnes.
Approved.
Okay. Now, Just finishing up some of the agenda items we had from our last meeting. I want to pick up on those. We had a discussion about a project update status. Now we have, this is a working group that consisted of Laura, Joe, and Reg. You did this in connection with your work on the application. Reg had, I think, had proposed a solution of just adding an additional question or a narrative to the application that the applicant makes to the town manager for disbursement of funds. Joe has come up with another proposal. And so what I've done is I put that out of our packet, and I thought that I would turn it over to Joe for him to explain the reasons why, to explain the proposed project update status form that he's put together, and for us to consider it, and also to consider it also in light of what Reg had proposed as an idea last week.
Sure.
All right, Joe, so take it over.
Well, let me just say first, over the past few years, we've discussed as a committee the status of some of the projects we've funded. As a committee, we spent considerable time weighing the merits of applications, interviewing proponents, holding public hearings, and presenting to town meeting. Once projects are approved by town meeting, proponents move on and projects begin, we hope. Unfortunately, our contact with the proponents often ends after town meeting. The status of projects or the progress or lack of progress is most often unknown to us. Status reports are provided to the town periodically, but we are not necessarily part of that process. What we learn is often anecdotal, or if we reach out and inquire. Over the past few weeks, Laura, Reg, and I have met and discussed how best to stay informed about the projects that we have devoted considerable time to support. In your packet tonight, you see the draft, and it is a draft, because obviously there are some other issues or other ways of going about getting feedback. It's a reporting mechanism that allow us to get an update on where the project stands. As you can see on the form, we would ask the project's liaison to take on the responsibility of getting the project update. We'd expect an update be provided twice a year, and this is up for discussion, obviously, until the project is completed according to the schedule provided. So you have a rough draft in front of you. I think we included all the areas that would be of note and importance to us. And we would want to put this in place once the project was approved and have it a part of the website so that the successful applicant would know upfront what the expectations would be after the funding process had ended. So that is that's, as I say, what we put together, and I guess primarily after discussion with Reg, Laura, I put it together, but certainly open for discussion.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for your presentation. I think in fairness to the process, what we'll do is we'll have your working group add anything that they want to add to it. So we'll start with Laura, and then we'll go to Reg. Okay, so if you have comments. So Laura first. Laura, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Thank you, Joe, for doing this, and Reg for pushing it along too. I think this is great. I don't know if we go back in time and try to find out what's happened with prior projects, if we do this moving forward. And now I'm just having a thought that, do we sort of make a comment about this requirement in our follow-up questions or in some documentation that the proponent receives once their request is approved? So we get the acknowledgement from them that they will follow this procedure.
Okay, that's a good question. There are a lot of different ways of handling that, but one of which is to make it part of the grant agreement, which is probably what I would recommend.
Okay.
We would instruct our council to have this part of the grant, so it's actually a contractual obligation at that point.
That'd be great.
That
And
covers,
then-
that
I'm
covers,
sorry.
covers non-town applicants. It doesn't cover town applicants. So we should have a mechanism for having town applicants who don't sign grant agreements to be obligated to fulfill this. Okay,
And then there's the matter of tracking this.
right.
And I think Joe, and I agree, said it would be the proponent. But we need to somehow get a mechanism in place because with everything else we all do, you know, we may not. Maybe it's a placeholder in meetings around these dates.
What Joe suggests, he actually puts in there that the first report is due on the October 30th and the second is on June 30th first. So we should be
Right.
getting dates on the 30th of October and shortly after
I
that.
agree, but I think we may need to remind, it wouldn't hurt to remind for this liaison to remind the proponent, because what if they don't do it, right? We have to make sure that we're on top of that. So just wondering if we put it, you know, in the October meeting and, you know, the last meeting of the year to just as a reminder that we check with to make sure we have these updates. And are these updates going to be shared with the committee? You know, what are we going to do with them?
I mean, well, all right, so my expectation is that this is a report that's submitted to the CPC. And so we should be having these distributed on, you know, the November or December meeting and the July or August or September meeting.
I think we should all hear about them. Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Thank you.
That's a comment. So now what we're hearing, so that's a comment about the process. Okay, but I'm also interested in hearing the procedure here, this mechanism, this form. So let's hear comments on both. So I wanted to go to Reg and then I'll go to Jean and I think Rick. I think that's how it works. But Reg, let's hear from you. Do you have any comments about this project update status form?
Well, I think.
I know, is it my turn?
No, it's not, Jean. Hold
Oh,
on.
sorry.
All on you. Okay. All right, Reg Foster.
So I do think, you know, that these are good questions to answer. I mean, there's, and, you know, there's maybe some little fine tuning of the form, but I don't think that we're just talking about the big picture here. I do agree with Laura that how we go about implementing this and getting it to come in regularly every 6 months, I think maybe needs to be thought through some more. I mean, there's turnover of liaisons on the committee. Some of these projects kind of drag along for months and years. I'm thinking of our boat launch project from last year that went from 2015 until we discovered that nothing had been done since then. I think we should ask ourselves or ask, actually what I would ask is the town manager or staff to comment on what's the best way to do this. Is this a staff function rather than relying on us kind of uncertain and unsteady volunteers to do this like clockwork? You know, I have no axe to grind one way or the other. My suggestion last month, it's just an idea. At least we know that we'll be getting reports from applicants when they're looking for money. And if we haven't heard anything looking for money, then we know nothing much has happened here. So, but I would rely on town staff and to give us a comment on our concepts here. And then I think we also ought to sort of test this out on sort of at least recent projects. I mean, I think the projects that were approved by town meeting last spring definitely should be, you know, whenever we finished deciding what to do, should be sending these reports, and maybe a year or two before that, they don't have to send in, 4 6-month reports, but they can send one catch-up report that covers the entire period that's transpired since we've heard anything from them here. And, for example, I think the committee would be very interested at some point in what's happening, what happened to the $1.386 million award last spring. Has anything happened yet or not? And actually, there would be a very interesting October 30th report on that subject, should we choose to ask for that. So I think every 6 months is, fairly often, but it should be no less than every year.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Rich. All right, Jean McKnight.
Yes, I have 2 comments or questions. Suppose the project involved a feasibility study or a design study. Would we be expecting to receive that study, or is it irrelevant whether we receive it, the CPC? Like, suppose it's a park and recreation project, and all they would put is, has the, they would say the feasibility study was submitted to the Park and Recreation Commission on such and such a date. What's our expectation on something like that?
Okay, so that's a question.
Yeah, I mean, and we want, I think, to make it clear, if we're anticipating, on October 30th or June 1, that we be provided with an actual work product in the form of a design plan or a feasibility study. That's we should say. So if it's really that they're not providing it to us, they're providing it to the applicable agency of the town, department of the town, well, then that's what they should say they did, and then my other comment is not that many, but some projects that we may fund require the recording of a restriction, whether it's a conservation restriction or historic preservation restriction or a affordable housing restriction. We should ask, if this project required the grant of a restriction, has that restriction been granted? Has it been accepted? And has it been recorded? Or is that so kind of exceptional and unusual that would only ask that in certain cases? Those are my 2 questions.
Let's hear from Rick, and then I have kind of opinions on all these things, but I'd like to hear from the committee first. So Rick, you have comments and questions about the form and now the process is.
Yeah, I do. And I've got a couple. First, I agree with Reg's comment. We have a lot of turnover on this committee as far as liaisons are concerned. And some of these projects extend for a number of years. And so I think that there needs to be some continuity with respect to following up on these, and liaisons might not be the best mechanism. I'm not sure what it is, whether it's the staff or some other way, but and to the extent the liaison's there, they have a vested interest in these projects. So, they may be the right person as well, but eventually someone's going to step down off the committee and be replaced. And it wouldn't be necessarily fair to the new replacement to come on board and have to pick up on something that they don't know. That was question number 1, thought number 1. Thought number 2 is one of the aspects of these projects is we make an award at the time of prior to town meeting. Town meeting authorizes the expenditure of those funds, approve the project, And then we kind of walk away. But on the same token, we have a vested interest in whether all of that money, number one, is it spent and is all of it spent? Because what isn't spent, or if it's not spent, gets rolled back into the community preservation buckets at some point in time. And I guess I think it's important that we see progress, or when a project is closed out, or a particular project is closed out, if there's money left over, we need to be notified of that, so we understand that that's going to become available down the road. As far as keeping, because we do have a number of projects, we can't fund them all, and the more requests we get, the more we're going to have a need for that money. And I'll use Regis as an example, just because he mentioned, the status report and so on and so forth. We authorized a sizable chunk of money there. And if, for example, Reg knows that he's not going to be expending all of that money that he requested for the housing authority, and they're not going to be expending all of that, then we should be aware of that, because he may be coming in this year and requesting some additional funds for either that project or another project, as far as phase 2 or whatever it might be. And it might be helpful for us to know the status of that. Same thing holds true. I noticed, one of the attendees had money for the community farm. And in that situation, we don't know if all of that was spent, if he's coming back in looking for more money, that type of thing. And there are other situations where folks just haven't spent the money for whatever reason. It might have been approved and it just sits there because of other priorities, or they haven't got all the approvals, or whatever it might be. And I think that's the importance of having this updated so that we can manage our financial aspects of the project. And then one final thought, if we're going to have this and this requirement, and it's really, from my perspective, it's to settle out the accounts so that we have a better financial accounting of the money that was in the CPA. I think it's probably important that we include in our the CPA plan that we have, a section on reporting and keeping track of these projects as they move forward. And that's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Point.
Okay. Great. All right, so we have Bob Dermody.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Apologize for my tardiness. I concur with my colleague Rick's, a lot of his comments in general. I think the form is good intent. I think, and I don't know the answer to this, but I think I want to caution us on overstepping our bounds. At some point, I don't think we're there yet, but just throwing that out there. I think the most crucial thing that Rick said is, what was it, balancing the accounts, or, acknowledging what went out. And then a new question popped into my head while he was speaking, a hypothetical. I don't know that we have to debate it right now, but I'm curious. Town meeting votes to approve X amount of dollars for a project from some applicant, and they never do the project for whatever reason. The money would come back, but is there a statute of limit? Is there a time limit? Like, does an applicant told by the town, not us, but by the town, like, all right, here's your money, you got to spend it in this year, next year, because I think that's important to know. I would like applicants to use the money in a timely fashion. Not that we have a lot of control over that, but I don't know if that's in our plan anywhere. That's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, so there are a lot of questions. I don't know that I handled this procedurally that well, because I just wanted everybody to have a voice. So everybody each of you raised questions. So some of these, and let me turn it over to staff first.
Yeah.
Why don't we deal first with the free cash? I think you probably want to talk about free cash.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can
let's
provide,
talk about
so I have to do an annual report. I want to say it's every September on where the status of every approved CPC project is to the state, that I really base off of what's been expended in the accounts and what hasn't. So this form would make that whole process a whole lot easier. I will say that. I am more than willing for the town liaison. I do agree with Reg and a couple other people echoed the sentiment that having it come from the town staff, because it's built into the system, it's built into the paperwork that passes on from, if I were to ever step down from this role and someone were to take it on, it would just be part of that package. So that would be an easy take on for us. The timing of this works. The grant agreement does have a line for outside organizations where it says this project must be finished within this time period. And usually we work with the organization for what time period makes sense. Like if we know it should be done within a year, we put a year. If we know it's a much longer project, we obviously wouldn't limit them to a year. It also has a clause in there existing that says whenever we ask for records, you have to turn it over. So we could expand that to just be like, you have to submit a report. I think that's a very easy Chris Heap conversation. He's been working with me on a lot of the grant agreements now, as is.
All right, so now
Think
what
I hit
you're,
everything.
okay, so what, you've answered a lot of questions. Let's go with the last one. So with respect to the last point, there's catch-all language in the current grant
Yeah.
agreement, which obligates the recipient to provide any reports we reasonably request.
Yeah,
So now this can be a new defined report that we now reasonably.
yeah.
request. Okay, so that answers that question.
And for the town articles where it's going to a town department, we can easily require that. We can chase them down. We can get reporting. We have to do as town departments an annual report to the town manager on where all of our existing capital accounts stand. So anything that falls under CPC would already be going and getting an annual report on. So this would just be tacked onto that.
Other than this report, would a grant receiver have to put forth any other progress reports to anybody?
The only thing that they do is when they ask for a reimbursement, they do need to provide all the documentation as to what work has been done and what we are reimbursing them for, that I then review. And then on top of that, the town accountant also does review to make sure it matches up. So that's usually how we're getting our status reports now, which is more of a money spent, not necessarily a status of the project. One of the churches, I want to say both of the churches actually have reached out from, what was that, FY21 to 2 years ago? And provided on their own accord, provided us with updates on where things stand.
But they don't have to schedule discussion.
Not as of right now.
Okay, so now, but my understanding though is the part of the free cash that comes in on those financial summaries that we receive from Dave
Mhm.
is any unexpended funds,
Mhm.
if there are any, from grants.
Yeah.
So I want to clarify that with the committee, which is, it's not as if the free cash component money is disappearing. It is all coming back to CPC on the books, but we're not seeing it. We're only seeing it in under a defined category called free cash.
Yeah. And
Right.
if we build this into, if these are the timeframes, October 30th and June 1st, then when we compile all of it, town staff can come to these meetings and say, this is all we've received, this is all the information we have, and we can definitely do a presentation, and then you guys can.
All right, and so now I want to deal with, I think Rick's question really was, well, if the recipient understands that they're not going to be spending down all this money, if they anticipate turning over some of the funds, I think he wants a mechanism for knowing that. I mean, in an unlikely event that we're going to get $1 million back, you'd like to know that in terms of our planning, right? So your thinking is, Rick, I want to clarify this.
Yeah, that's right. It's really for planning purposes.
So it's part of their reporting on the budget. They can report on what the estimate to complete is. And what the estimate of completion is.
Yeah, and we can do a
Okay,
quick
and
kind of signature form that says, there's this much left in the grant agreement. We don't need it. We're turning it back to the town. That way there's a signature from them in the town that says, hey, this $100,000 is going back to CPC, before I just close it and then like, wait a minute.
okay, and then what I'd like to do, Joe, I want to get you in a minute. I want to just deal with the other issues So I think that Reg's point makes sense, 2 points, which is, should be staff driven. It's obvious this now can be a staff function. And kind of another point that he made is we should get input from the staff on this form. So I think that also makes sense for us as a committee to ask staff to look at this form and see what additional information that they would like to have on it to be reported. That would be kind of my idea. Gene, and just to respond to Gene's question, which was, what's our work product? I wouldn't anticipate that we're asking for the work product itself, Gene, right? If that feasibility study can be found somewhere, but we don't need to see that, right? You feel comfortable with that, correct, Gene?
Yes, I just wanted to understand what's usually done. I haven't been on the committee that long.
And now you have to also, there were, this representation about whether or not a restrictive covenant has been recorded. That's something that is that would be part of a grant agreement. I think.
Yeah, I comment on the work product thing before we go further.
Sure.
Which is, when there's a feasibility study, more likely than not, there's going to be another request to construct the boat launch, just to pick our example from last year. And what postponed it is because they had not completed the feasibility study, and it just, and unfortunately we had a death. So, I'm not trying to throw stones at anybody here. And likewise, to use myself as an example, if we're going to come back to the well and ask for more money for Linden Chambers, then certainly having access to the design that was paid for by CPA funds to redevelop the project would be a legitimate thing to ask for. So I think it sort of naturally takes care of itself.
Okay, right. Okay, good point. All right, let's go back. We have some hands up on our remote participants. First one is Joe, and next, so Joe Barnes. Joe, we can't hear you.
Just so that I'm clear on this, if I understand correctly, Cecilia is saying that the information that would be gained from this form is valuable. We would be taking it, she's suggesting we take it off the liaison's responsibility. It's something that town is able to do and is currently doing pretty much anyway. But we would be able to get this information going forward where we are not getting it right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
That's all I need. Thank you.
All right, and Laura Dorfman.
Thank you. Just two quick things. And maybe this is out of ignorance. I would love to see one of the grant agreements. I don't think I've ever seen one, just so I can understand what it says. And then I think it's important that we share these updates, maybe just the successes with town meeting. I think that when people vote to approve these things, that they should also understand what's happening with them and how things are going. And I'm not trying to create extra work for anybody, but could that be part of, our, I don't know if it's a warrant, I don't know what it is. Could that be part of a presentation to town meeting?
Well, we have an annual report that we provide at the time of town meeting. We may want to include a link to updates. If we could put the updates, there's no harm in posting the updates.
I mean, why not? Wouldn't you
Come on.
want to know as a resident or town meeting member where those funds, like what resulted at the end? We don't have ribbon cuttings, right? We're not like a for-profit business. But I think that might be something that people would like to know and might engage and might encourage some sort of involvement as well.
I mean, we were invited to one of the churches. I always get them mixed up last year.
The Baptist or the, I know what you're talking about, the First Baptist and Yeah.
All right, okay, so, all right, so let me deal with Rick and then we'll hear from Reg. All right, Rick Zumba.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I just, this is kind of bordering on the four corners of this discussion, but I think one of the reasons why we could use feedback on these projects is, I'm not sure how many of you folks read the Needham, not the town, but the Needham Facebook page. And every single day, there's a comment in there about the status of the open space in front of town hall and whose idea was it and how was that money spent and what's
Exactly.
going on and so on and so forth. And
Exactly.
I'm particularly, since it came out of our budget, I'm not particularly interested in having to answer questions that I don't know the answers to when I show up next Monday on town meeting floor for the fall town meeting. So I think in situations like that, and I'm not sure how we go about doing this, that's why I'm saying it borders on the four corners of this discussion. But I think it's probably important that if there's a problem with a project or if something is delayed, that we should be aware of it and somehow get notified about it. And it went months and months where the project was basically being ripped apart on this Facebook page, and no one was responding. And so I'm not suggesting that we should respond, but that someone needs to. And finally, it was responded to, and there were some legitimate explanations. But on the same token, I think it's wise for us to be aware of what's going on. That's all, especially with the money we've spent.
This is
Okay.
real quick. So, helpful that I'm in DPW. There is a project page on the Public Works website for the Town Common project. And so it might be as simple as just linking on the CPC page to the Town Common project. So that way, because it is related and there is a function, and then you guys can also see on the CPC page, like, oh, here's a link to any project page that might be CPC funded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if we get, let's see, I don't know when we funded that project and what we would have gotten an update by now, but we probably would have come close. We funded it. No, we would have
Yeah.
gotten it up. We would have gotten a series of updates.
It was approved at May's.
May of
21.
2021.
Yeah.
So we would have gotten at least 3 updates by now. Okay, so this is,
The third one will be coming at the end of the month.
and then, right, so this.
But Peter, I'm sorry, but is it that with that project, I don't know that that's our responsibility to update that.
We would be getting an update from.
Right.
the-
Right. But to Rick's point, I'm not sure it's on us to report, the status of that. That's a much bigger thing than just us.
Okay. But, all right, so, okay, so my point being that there would have been some information shared from the recipient to this committee over the last 18 months that would have provided some knowledge base for us to respond to the person on the street. Right, okay, so we've got one, hold on for a minute. We got Bob Dermody, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Real quickly, I think we need to find a line to separate, we can talk about what monies get spent from our buckets. That's our role. And I think Cecilia had a good point there. Maybe especially a lot of the town projects could be updated in a manner that they seem to already be doing. And also, I'd just like to say, with all due respect to my esteemed colleague, Rick, I want to go on record as saying in no way ever would I be in favor of us doing anything influenced by Facebook. Thank you.
Okay, so now, all right, so, all right, so Dave. comment.
Yeah, I just had a comment on the form itself, where we say, is the project on budget or is the project on schedule? I would suggest maybe throw in a couple other questions. If it's not on budget, why not? And what is the proponent doing to get on budget? Or if it's not on schedule, why isn't it on schedule? And is the proponent to get back on schedule.
Okay,
And maybe even a third category, what do you see as potential problem areas coming down the road, and how are you gonna handle those?
so I think what we're trying to balance there is kind of the burden that we're putting on the recipient. And so, but I think that one thing that, so I think we just have to be aware of that. And but I think those are good ideas. I think that timing issue is one of the issues that we're really trying to address, because we gave grant agreements to, or we gave grants and we didn't hear anything back for years. So, and we had questions, what's going on with that project? Similar to what Rick was talking about with the town common. You know, there's a grant given and we didn't see any progress, and we had questions that were being raised. So this is a report that's going to give us some knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to know if they're on budget or not. The timing, it seems to me, is really critical.
But it seems like you want to ask them for a routine progress report. I mean, that's what this really is.
Yeah, all right, so Rick, Reg, you have thoughts on that, because you're a non-government, let's say non-town entity that's going to be receiving large sums of money. Do you want to?
I do have comments, which is, again, to repeat myself a little bit, I would refer all of our comments to staff and ask them to digest them and come back to us with a proposal that takes care of all these, you know, desires. That's comment number one. And the second one, going back to what Laura recommended, all of a sudden it flashed in front of my mind what I think the answer is. So take this as a comment under advisement, which is every year of the town, a lot of efforts put into the town annual report. And we have a whole page or two or whatever that we author, the chair authors. I have a page for the Needham Housing Authority. And so we put a lot of effort in to putting a summary of what's happened since the prior year, any updates in staffing, even though it's done by fiscal year. So, you know, it's fiscal year 22 annual report. We look forward, you know, usually the updates are due sometime in January, if I remember, or something like that. So if there's any material thing that's happened, we put that in it as well. And I think this, what we're zeroing in on with the recommendation of staff would be present us, or the chair who's updating the section, with all you need to have to report on our successors and, you know, what happened in prior year projects. And then if we needed to have that for town meeting in the spring, we can just say, we'll go read our pages in the annual report.
Okay, but we also have our annual report. We have an annual report that's required by statute for this committee to.
No, I'm not talking about that.
I
one. I'm talking
understand
about the Town.
I
town
understand
report.
that, but I think that some of this can actually just be addressed in our
It
annual
could be
report.
too. Yeah.
Okay, so that's for staff to consider, okay, which seems to me that we probably could, I think it could be in the annual report. It's, we post them. Those sections, those pages are buried in the operating, you know, the telephone book.
Some of us.
Yeah,
crazy
some-
people do.
Right,
that.
some people do, and some people use them as
It's
a
nice to hear.
doorstop. But ours are
It's really
posted.
great information.
Okay, all right, so I think that is, I think, can we summarize to say that this is a good working document? We'll turn it over to staff to get their input. And it looks like it's going to be a staff-run function. We'll figure out, we'll balance and figure out how we're going to, the kind of detail that the staff needs and the committee's interested in. And then we'll figure out some public reporting that we want to do either through the town, but what do we call that, Reg, town budget report or town report?
It's the annual report.
Annual report, or our reports that come out at annual meeting. So, why don't we,
The same
okay.
name. That's
I know,
what's
I know. It's a little
confusing.
confusing. Okay. Okay, any other comments on this? Okay, I hope I have addressed, does everybody feel like their expressed comments and concerns have been addressed, or that are they're on a path to being resolved? Want to make sure of that. Okay, all right, good. All right, so now, why don't we do this? We're staying on the subject here. Let's look at our calendar, okay? And then, so it's our project, it's our working project planner.
This is the most important agenda item.
Okay, so what Cecilia and I did was we did something pretty basic. We went back to last year. We looked at what we did in preparation for town meeting beginning in December. And so we kind of tracked that. So you're going to see a lot of meeting dates. I think that we've kind of, in the past years, we kind of filled them in on the fly a little bit. But I think that this is just kind of the reality that we're facing. And we had talked last month about what dates that we would likely be issuing the due diligence questions and when we would ask for responses. And then when will we be hearing from presentations? So here we have in front of you a calendar that reflects the work that we did in our prior year. Okay. So you'll see that the applications, what we do, we have the applications we do on the 1st of December. And what I would propose is that it would be on the 1st of December, or if that falls on a Saturday, on a weekend or a holiday, then the first business day thereafter. Because I don't think we want to wait. We got a lot, we have a lot of work to do between December 1 and January. So we want that 30-day period to actually be a 30-day
As a
period.
point of information,
Sure.
just, I think the first 2 or 3 dates. Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I have a correction.
I just caught that right now. I put 2023 a little early.
So
Okay.
if people are looking at their, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
great. You already fixed it. Way ahead of me.
Okay, so, all right, so you see the applications come in on the 1st. We're going to have a meeting. We'll get those and we'll have 2 weeks to get those turned around and sent to us. And then we'll have a meeting on the 14th. We'll review the applications, assign liaisons. We'll continue to, and then on the 28th, we'll probably be doing eligibility questions for the easy ones. And then on the 1st, notifying the applicants and expect their answers by the 1st of February. And in between that time, we've done this in the past. We've done this. This is how we've always done it. Start having applicants make presentations. We usually hear from the town because those are relatively easy. Eligibility is often clear and they're usually well prepared. So we usually take town applications in January. Due diligence questions are answered by February. And then we continue to have presentations in early February. And then we have discussions in February and March. And we shoot for the Rick Zambone always pushing us to have our vote a month before our town meeting. So that's what we've been pushing to do, especially since Rick's been on the committee. So, and buried in there will be the chair's consult with the select board, chair's consult with FinCom. Just as a point of information for you folks, I anticipate, maybe we'll discuss this, but in prior years, we've wanted to have basically our work almost completed before we report out to select board and FinCom. We actually often get a lot of questions from FinCom. And so we may want to consider having chair make a presentation to FinCom, which in a way is a little bit more of a listening exercise of the chair, and because there may be some questions that they have. But I'm welcome to hear have your input. Maybe we kind of can balance that. The fact that we often get questions from them and are kind of scrambling, if you will, to give them the answers is something that I've just been trying to address. Okay. So, all right. So with that, I want to take any comments that people have. We don't need to go, I can go in alphabetical order, or everybody's pretty comfortable with speaking. So we can just start. If anyone has any comments, put your hand up or question. Jean McKnight.
Simply that there are 2 meetings I can't make, but I know everybody has those situations. And November 16th, I do want to let you know, is going to be an important date for the work of the Housing Plan Working Group. We're going to reach out very big reach out to the community for a meeting to present the final, essentially final draft plan, although, you know, of course, we're open to the comments that the community makes in order to truly finalize the plan, but that's its presentation date, November 16th. And then February 15th is my birthday, and I'll be in Puerto Rico, so. But otherwise, all those dates look good to me.
If you came here, I would bring in a cake.
Okay, well, you haven't tempted me.
That doesn't work. Okay.
You could
So-
always meet in Puerto Rico.
On this, on the 16th, and by the way, Gene, the internet, I think it works in Puerto Rico. The 16th, just saying, the 16th, and really just kidding. Gene. Celebrate your birthday.
Oh, I know it would work, but okay.
16th, is that going to be is the equivalent of like a public hearing?
Yeah, we're having it, yes, it's like a public hearing, and we're going to have it in Powers Hall.
I will have a conflict with that too.
Mm.
Okay, so I think we want to reconsider that.
23rd is the day before
It's 23rd
Thanksgiving.
before Thanksgiving, day before Thanksgiving, okay.
But you could move it to maybe the day before, because the day after is
It's always hard.
monthly. No, this is why we're doing this. You know, it's much easier to do this when we're all here.
I know, but it's on the town side, we have a lot of conflicts.
Is the planning boarding?
I can find out real quick.
Yeah, staff has conflicts.
Mondays are good too.
That Monday is terrible.
Rick, we're just working on the calendar a little bit, then I'm
Let
gonna
me
call
just
you,
make sure the
okay?
room's available.
Yeah, no, I had a comment on the 16th, Peter, as well as another, but my comment on the 16th was, do we even need the meeting?
Okay, so what we would do on the
Planning
16th,
board.
if anything, we would be driving forward our CPA plan, and maybe we don't need it, because what I'll tell you, just as a preview for driving it forward, is my plan is to go before the Conservation Commission, go before Park and Rec, again, because they've been kind of reconstituted. So push those stakeholders to provide us with some information. And so maybe we don't need to meet on the 16th.
I will say the 15th, the Tuesday before, if we were to meet, or the Monday, which I lied, I am free. We would have to meet in Town Hall. This building is booked both Monday and Tuesday that week,
All right, so
which is fine.
I don't know that there's any urgency for us to meet on the 16th. That's a good point. Maybe we can take a
No, that's
break.
next month, right?
Mhm.
I would suggest making a placeholder and then cancel the meeting if we don't need it.
Right, so why don't we do this? Let's schedule it for not what's our Monday, what's our Tuesday date or Monday date?
Monday is the 14th and we just meet in Town Hall, but there's plenty of rooms there.
All right, can we get a quorum on the 14th? Does anybody have a conflict on the 14th?
I have a conflict on the 14th.
Okay, good. The historical commission meets on the 14th.
14.
Okay, so Laura's got a conflict.
I do also.
Okay, and Joe has a conflict. How about the 15th?
15th is a planning board meeting.
Jean's got a conflict. That's.
Yeah,
planning board.
I have planning board on the 15th, but the 14th is free.
Okay, so let's put it on for the 15th. I think Jean's not gonna make it.
Mhm.
And we'll use it as a placeholder. Likelihood of having a meeting is a little low. Okay,
15th of which month, please, Peter?
November,
Sorry,
November 5th.
November. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay,
One comment about the placeholder. Usually by the time you get to December 1st, all ordinary business ceases for the committee until next April. So if we want to make progress on this reporting thing, that's going to be our last opportunity to receive recommendations from staff.
I don't know how quickly they can turn it around, but that's
I don't
that's
either.
another good reason to have the meeting, though. You're right, at least to see if it's possible.
If I
All right,
have, the 15th is fine. I think we can get stuff by the 15th.
Okay, all right, so all right, so let's put it on for the 15th. Rick's and Bones hands up. Rick.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Peter. If you're planning on publishing the final report on the new plan, you need to schedule a public hearing before that's done. And I'm not sure what your thoughts were on that.
We're not anywhere near being done, right? So we're not going to be doing this until, and sometime in February, and it could be later than that, right? Could be.
Yeah, the only reason why I bring it up is you've got a tentative publish date of February 23rd. So if we're gonna live with that, then you need to put a date for a public hearing. That's all.
Mm.
Point. Okay.
There are 3 dates for discussion on applications, so I'm not sure if we'll need.
Okay, we may have some time. All right, so that's, let's work on that, Rick. So that's a good point. We need a public hearing date. It's gonna be hard. It may be that we have some time in April.
Or at the other public hearing we got to do in March. So, that doesn't necessarily take all that long. to
That's
do,
true.
And you could have a double purpose public hearing.
All right, that's good. That's true. So maybe March 15th, have a public hearing, and it could include the CPA plan. That may be better for our timing on the plan too. Okay, so let's make a note of that. How's that, Rick? Possibility?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make note that we need something.
Great. That's a great point. All right, Gene McKnight, your hand is up.
Yes, with regard to the plan, I know that there has been input from many people on it already. I have some, I will call them non-substantive comments kind of regarding organization. Should I address those comments or send a red line to Kristen or?
Yeah. Cecilia,
Cecilia, who
you have comments, it's great. We haven't received, but I'm going to turn to that in a minute. So I think we're going to do a very truncated version of the exercise we went through last week, which is like, okay, if anybody has comments on this, let's scroll through it quickly. And then what you actually raised a good point, which may be any further edits or proposals, just forward them in a red line format and to Cecilia, and I can review them and we'll compile them. Okay.
Sure.
So
Mhm.
so please do that, but I want to turn to that, the plan, just to scroll through it and see what its present status is. So there's another hand up, and that's Laura Dorfman.
Hi, Peter. I thought we said the plan was approved at the last meeting. I'm confused.
No, the plan is not improved. The application has been approved. The application form has been approved.
Oh, right.
Okay.
I'm confusing the two. My bad. Sorry. Yep.
All right, any other comments or
I
questions
have a couple.
on the calendar and the working group, on the working plan? Okay, Reg Foster, comments.
So I think there's a couple more, just taking it in order. After the December 14th meeting, I think it would behoove us to pick a deadline for when individual committee members' questions are due to Cecilia and Kristen. Those are the ones that get packaged up and put in the follow-up questions that go out to the applications. I would, if you look at the calendar for December, I would suggest, been through this before on behalf of our loyal staff, who've got a lot of juggling, then that be Friday the 16th. That we're actually, that we get the applications at the beginning of December. We have our meeting on the 14th. Then and the deadline be the 16th, or because once you get into the following week, you're getting mighty close to the holidays.
Yeah, no, I actually disagree with that. So it's a little too aggressive for us. They have a lot of work to do. They have to review these plans. What we've done in the past is that we've gotten them right immediately before the holiday, like go to the 25th. In fact, one year we went until like the 29th or 30th.
So that would be Friday the 23rd. If
So
you're
that-
suggesting that.
I think that works. Okay, that's what we've done in the past.
I tried, guys. The second is, I would put that date in there because that's just, things are tight to get that out.
And this is our workflow outline, so that's a good reason to put that in there. That's
Yeah.
good, Rich. So
The
say,
second-
just say, hold on, we'll just say due diligence questions from CPC members due.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then the January 1st one is a nit, but I would say notify the application of eligibility and distribute the follow-up questions to the applicants. Because that's a big new sort of thing we're doing for the
Yeah.
second year.
great.
The next one I would be is, you have all the presentations in January and then discussions in February. If I understand what that means, you're not, do we get the, completed follow-up questionnaires in before we schedule a presentation? Or
No,
do we have to have room for presentations in February, which we actually did do last year? Depends on how many applications we get, but
well, we have applications coming in January, so we're before the questions are answered. So we just have to do it that way. And it works out because it's usually the town presentations that we get.
I would just,
And I think
And so,
last
but-
year, there were some questions that came out from the presentation that we wanted them to provide.
And-
I was just, again, maybe this is a nit, but I think in February, at least in the early, it could be presentations and
Oh,
discussions.
they are. Yeah, we do, but,
Well,
oh,
that-
I see, application discussions. Yeah, that's right. No, that's that's just a typo. It should, the February and February are application and presentations. Yes, well, that's a good point, because I don't want everyone to think that we're getting all the presentations done in 2 hearing dates in January.
That
They're
was-
not, because January and February, clarify.
That's what I.
January and February, there you go.
Yeah.
Application. So what we do is we talk and we present,
Yeah,
okay?
Maybe it's presentations and discussions all the way through.
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That's good. Good. Okay.
The last comment I have here is, it seems to me, again, just having watched this over the years, that March 29th is mighty late for our final, vote on the applications. Because you jam up against the town meeting warrant printing schedule and so forth. I would turn to staff for recommendation there, that we might aspirationally set our goal to be March 23rd, 22nd, I mean. And then that leaves us a little bit more wiggle room if we don't get everything done. But I don't know what the exact town warrant schedule is for next year, but I know it's gelling in its final form.
So
By the
we did,
29th.
last year, we had our public hearing, and then we had a discussion
The next,
at the next meeting. We had a discussion, the next meeting, not on the 29th. I think we had another meeting,
yeah,
but it was took up a lot of time because of the particulars of the discussion. And we didn't do any vote. I don't think we did a vote that night,
I
right?
sent the recommendations from CPC to the town manager's office on March 31st. So it was the Thursday morning following our vote, and it got
We
into
did
the
vote.
warrant.
We did have the discussion and vote on the 29th.
so
yeah.
we did, but it was, I think we were.
We got
up
in under the
against
wire.
But I was drafting them at like, when I got home at 11 PM and sending
So
them for the
my-
next
Hey,
morning.
I was drafting edits the morning
Yeah,
of.
it
and
was-
hoping
yeah,
that they
and
would
I
get
think I
in
sent
yet.
them
So
to
Reg
you.
raises a really good.
It
point.
was
I
last
gotta go a
minute.
week early.
Well, or I would put both dates in, because when we have a final one of these are going into my calendar and I'm like kind of blocking out the time.
It
That's
was-
very useful, actually, to do that.
I'm looking at the emails. It was rough.
Yeah, no, it has to go in a week early.
Yeah.
So I
We
would-
can't, no, we shouldn't even put it in the 20th.
Well, I'm saying we should have the 23rd, 22nd.
Yeah.
Is discussion and possible vote on the application,
That's
and the 29th is further discussion and definite vote on the, or, we'll have.
Okay.
staff
Hold it as a
All right, that's fine.
backup.
That's fine. That's good.
PTSD going here.
No, that's great.
I'd make it both discussion and vote on both of those here. Yeah. Get the 20, you already. Yeah, okay. If we can get it done on the 22nd, it really takes a lot of pressure off at staff. Because we're not the only moving part. that's going on.
You're the only
Okay.
one we care about. them. So you're the only one we care about.
You love all your committees. all your children.
All right, that's fine. So any other comments? Those were all really
Peter.
helpful.
I just had a comment, and I know everyone's super busy, but on the website, we need to probably update the public hearing information, stuff like that. Just moving forward. We're
I don't
talking
know.
about March 2022.
Right, well, that was yeah, so they'll update it. They need to update it.
Yes.
That's good. Okay. All right, Joe Barnes.
Yeah, Cecilia, could you resend this updated calendar? It's
Yes.
a lot of additions from today, and we can update our own personal calendars. Thank you.
That's good, Joe. Yeah, this is good. It was a good organic, it's a good document, good exercise. Okay, we feel good about this calendar. We got a plan.
Jean has-
You may want to note on the CPC public hearing that it could include 2024 funding projects and potentially amended CPA plan. On the book. Just so people know,
We
right?
only have better attendance for the CPA plan. Last time we did the CPA plan, public hearing, nobody showed up.
Okay.
Because it's not like,
Oh, I see your point. We'll have better input. Okay, good. Okay, Gene McKnight, hand is up.
Yes, I have to zoom off in just a couple of minutes. I have another meeting that I'm a half hour late for. But I just want to make one comment about the plan. I with regard to organization, I'd like to see open space in a separate section from recreation. It has a separate ABC, but it needs its own heading, its own section. I think the sections should be numbered. I've kind of got a system that goes from 1 to 8 on the different sections. I think numbering is helpful. So that's just really my only comments in the nature of organization.
All right, so Gene, would you forward to staff the red line revisions that you have?
Yes.
In under comments, you can put in, though, I think the open space in a separate section, that was just an error in the structuring, but we're going to address that. But you could put that in a comment just to remind us that that's the case. If I didn't get fixed this go around, it's just because I missed it. Okay. And then numbering of the sections is a great idea. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And
You
I'm
can put
sorry
it-
that I have to leave.
That's
Okay.
fine. That's our next topic, and that's our final topic for the evening. So you've already gotten your input in. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Bye.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to let's go through the plan now. And if we can put that up here and scroll through it. And what I want to do is just kind of go through pages, so I think 1 through 14, just kind of scroll through it. And if there's questions that people have. What I did, I think I put this in a brief note to the committee, took your comments and concerns, tried to come up with some compromise language that addressed everyone's questions. And tried to input as best I could with exercising some discretion, but of course you can overrule me. I don't have any special power, but just in an effort of trying to get the job done. Okay, but if you disagree with what shows up here, then please let me know or let us know now or in future comments that you might make to this draft. Okay. So let's see, keep scrolling through. I think some of the things that I noodled through, I kept that kind of good stop there. I kept it a bit of a minimalist approach. There was some requests to give it a little more detailed information concerning exceptions to the surcharge. But I kept the bullet form in the generalized approach there and made a reference, I think, to the bylaw and other sections where additional information can be found. Let's see, can we go scroll through? Funding
Peter?
requirement.
Yeah, Bob here, one minor, selectmen, should we read select board now?
Right.
Large paragraph, that one there, and then the one below, thank you.
Good catch.
Doesn't spell.
You can do a search and replace.
Yeah.
Okay,
do
search,
that.
do a search and replace.
I'll do that after.
Okay,
Thank you, Cecilia.
I hope on the last, one thing I didn't proof check by looking at the statute was actually that, we'll hold it right there.
Okay, good.
If we were relying really on our collective knowledge, which could be wrong. On what the town meeting can do. I always thought it was an up or down vote. And that, but there could be an amendment, as it says here, but it has to be a committee amendment. So, it seems, I just want to make sure that that's our understanding, and I think I need to look at the statute and the bylaw to make sure.
Ask town council.
Yeah, let's ask town
Yeah.
council about that, okay?
I have a meeting with them tomorrow.
Because the original draft said, I think that we could increase the amount, or maybe, but I always thought it was up or down, but, okay, that's all I had, okay. So let's, and then continue to scroll through here. These are just summaries of what it can be used for. Open space in each of these subheadings tracks the language of the statute itself. Let's continue to scroll through, and then I think some of that.
Peter,
Yes.
it's Laura. Just a question. I'm looking at open space and recreation. It says the following sections should be reviewed and revised as needed by the Conservation Commission.
Oh, wait a minute. We're not there yet, right? We're on page 10.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm ahead of you. My apologies. Okay.
All right.
Make sure it's all in the same font.
Okay. All right, so general factors for consideration. This was this was my effort at trying to, I took the language that Reg had proposed, some input from you folks, and I came up with this. You can continue to tweak it if you want, but I think we've I think that I feel comfortable with this language. Take a look at it. You don't need to decide tonight, okay? Factors for consideration.
Question, sir. Should effect be affect? Will necessarily affect AFFECT?
Yes,
I
it
was
should
even
be
saying the
A,
word.
sorry. About that. The educator among us.
Leave it to a former English teacher.
Yeah. Okay, Joe, good catch. So now factors for consideration. The one thing I kind of noodled through is these subjective factors. I think what I did ended up leaving out, well, you scroll forward into like 6 or 7 or 8 or something. I think I was dealing with it. I think I was looking at the issue of issues of equity and fairness. I think that's forward a little bit further.
This one?
Subjective factors of equity, fairness, and worthiness. Because I actually, and then I put it, I had some language in there about community norms, and I worry about that language because sometimes that can be value laden, and I'm a little worried about that. So I like us to rely and lean on the prior one, which is express priorities of the community, which really is kind of takes in a lot of things, including input from a public hearing, Nuari statements and other kinds of statements and priorities that are expressed to us either for town meeting or at a public hearing. That's how I kind of view that. It's a little bit of a catch-all. And I thought that I was a little uncomfortable with using the issue of community norms or the expression community norms. But I think that we can rely on community priorities and also issues like equity, fairness, and worthiness. Okay, that's how I kind of tried to address that. Everyone's expressed concerns about it.
As a point of information, before I
Yes.
came here, did this committee sign up for the Nuari principles?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
we did.
Then I would say that at some point, not at this meeting, that we kind of have to adopt the language that's in there, so the word inclusion means a lot. So again, I don't think we should do it on, online here, but just, I'll put that in a suggestion
Okay, good.
to you.
All right, so those are kind of now going in, so now what we still have is open space and recreation. We want we're waiting for updates for Park and Rec and from the Conservation Commission. And then we are waiting for updates from the Housing Authority, but they're relying on our Housing Priorities Working Group. What is our name of our working group?
Housing plan working.
Housing Plan Working Group.
And I have an update time-wise on that, which Jean could give if she was here.
Okay. All right, so those are my comments. So then what I'd like to say is to read this. And so when you have time over the next week, scroll through it again and provide comments, red lines, send it to Cecilia, not to anyone else. And then she can do a compilation and I can work from that. Okay, does that make sense? Everybody? Okay, any other comments? No, all right, so Reg is going to provide us with an update on Housing Priorities Working Group.
Housing
Plan, sorry.
working group here,
Plan,
yes.
sorry.
So Jean gave part one of it, which is there is this public hearing that's scheduled for the 16th, we just discovered about. The schedule is, this is the draft that exists, so it actually exists there. And then the schedule is on December 8th is the final, the aspirational final meeting of that Housing Plan Working Group to finalize, to go through and finalize the final draft based on that public hearing, which means that final draft will be existing and published the week before, let's say the 1st of December or somewhere. And thereafter, we have a task just to fold whatever is gelling at that point into that housing section. So I think sometime by mid or end of December, that can easily be done. And then that section is done.
All right, well, it's not that, all right, so that's, I just want to emphasize that section is done in terms of input
Yes, that's what I
from,
meant.
from a stakeholder,
From
but
a
that's
drafting point. of
from a
view.
drafting point, but
Yes.
no, from an input section,
Right.
because the
Input
committee,
drafting point of view, is that precise enough?
no, it's not, because
Okay.
what I'm saying, we're waiting for input from the stakeholders, but the
Right.
committee is actually doing the drafting. I just don't want, it's a nuance there, but what I'm saying is that the stakeholders don't dictate what is, they don't just drop in and dictate what is stated in the plan, right?
I appreciate the clarification.
Okay. But, and it's also because we have to digest that in, right? But I also think, in fairness to what Reg is saying, is that if you look at our prior iterations of the plan, they relied very heavily on
2007 affordable housing. Plan.
exactly 2007 affordable. Exactly. Very heavy. All right. Okay. Anything else, Rich?
Just another comment
Yeah.
and a question, but maybe I should start. I thought this draft was really great.
Okay.
I think it's really coming together. It's much better than the 2014 draft, and I just wanted to say that.
We don't have to do a comparative analysis,
I'm
Rich.
not
We don't.
comparing it, I'm just
Unless
saying
you're
it's
comparing
good.
us to Wellesley.
I'm not doing
If
that.
we're better than Wellesley, then that's
We're
good.
better than the past. And then secondly, is there a specific deadline for getting comments on the other two sections that haven't been I'm not gonna get the wording correct, so I'll let you insert the correct wording, drafting or inputting or so forth and so on, but it's been sitting out there saying we're waiting for
All right,
comments.
they
Is
had a
there
little bit,
specific deadline.
yeah, we can lean on them, and I think what we've done in the past at times is said, look, the train is moving, we're gonna write it ourselves, or you're gonna have an input. You're gonna have input, or we're gonna write it ourselves.
Well, whatever, but.
Okay, so we'll say now is the time. You know, Park and Rec has had this on their calendar for a number of months, okay? So maybe a year. So we'll follow up, okay? This, I plan on approaching them, in the November.
My
meetings.
only suggestion is deadlines are sometimes very helpful.
Okay.
We have a saying in my world, if it wasn't for the last minute, nothing would ever get done.
Okay, so are you proposing that we give some sort of deadline to them, that we want this input by December 1?
You certainly, so that we have all those final pieces that go in to be input in whatever correct way I should be saying this, so that then we can do our stuff.
Okay, let's say December 1. Fair enough. Okay, I'll work with, I'll tell the Park and Rec and Concom that it's December 1. Bit of a soft deadline. We'll give them a little.
It's always good to have a hard deadline that has some resilience.
All right. Okay. So that is it. There was one other item, but I'm not ready to talk about it now. And there's just we don't need to talk about it now at this hour either, dealing with presentations by applicants. We can talk about that next month. Okay. So any other comments by anyone? I think we've covered our business. Dave,
Peter, just a question. I'm sorry, it's Laura. So this plan, we can review and give comments to, but you've still got two constituencies with whom you have to speak about their input. Is that right?
It's 3, right? Because it's
Three.
a housing. Right, it's 3.
Okay, so this is not the last chance for us. In other words, we take a look and, right, and then,
Right.
right, okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry, there is one other issue. We do want to discuss one other thing. And actually to staff, we've had prior members who wanted to know that we're paying. So we should put this on the agenda every year. And this is our membership, this is our requirement. This is the membership dues to the Community Preservation Coalition. And so we've had in past years, just put it on the agenda, and it allows people to say, how much is it? And what do we get for it? Right? So how much are the dues? Do we know what the dues are? What's the invoice?
$7,900.
$7,900.
I assume it's a CPA eligible expense.
It comes out of our admin budget.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Do we need to review what we do? Do we need to review?
I make a motion that we approve 7,900 annual dues to be a member of the coalition.
Okay, I'll second that. That's Reg Foster makes a motion, Peter Pinger seconds. We'll have discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's have a vote. We'll do a roll call vote. Dave Harrell. Rick Zimbo.
Yes.
Reg Foster.
Approve.
Peter, I'm sorry to interrupt. My internet was wiggy there. Could you just briefly repeat the motion?
The motion was to approve the expenditure of $7,900 as to pay dues to the Community Preservation Coalition.
Annual dues.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Laura Dorfman.
Aye.
Okay, Jim McKnight is absent. Robert Dermody,
Approve.
Joe Barnes,
Approve.
and the chair approves. Okay, That-
One more question, Peter, sorry. Should we also be reporting on, when we find out what the contributions are, they're gonna be significantly lower for the past year than they will be, than they have been. And I don't know when we get that information, but I think that's something we need to kind of consider in the back of our minds.
Okay, so that usually comes in through the town. The stuff that we hear from the coalition website is not always reliable. There's some, there's budget surplus, there's budgets that they're talking about dispersing $20 million, there's some negotiations. So these things are up in the air, Laura.
Right, and the budget for the surplus to be given to CPA was never passed in the original deliberations that took place in August, and recordings are way down. So just something to think about.
All right. Okay. All right. So we'll, when we get that information, we usually just, when we get it, we provide it to the committee.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay.
okay.
Okay,
Just matter of course.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. We'll have a motion to adjourn meeting.
I heard
make
that one.
Second.
Okay. Make the motion. Peter Vayner makes the motion. Dave Harris seconds it. Bob Dermody woke up and Bob, do you approve?
Let me think about it. Debating the merits, I'm gonna go with yes.
Okay, Reg Foster. Approve. And Dave Harris. Rick Zimba,
Yes.
Laura Dorfman,
yes.
Joe Barnes,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.